Hello, and welcome back to The Deep Dive. We're the show that tries to, really get under the surface of complex topics. And today, well, we're looking at something massive happening right here in the UK, the whole journey towards a green economy. You kind of see the signs popping up, don't you? More wind farms out at sea, those quieter electric buses in cities. But what's really going on behind the scenes? How does a country juggle climate goals with, the economy, day-to-day stuff, and yeah, who wins? Who maybe finds it tougher? That's what we want to unpack.
It's definitely a critical time for the UK. And you're right, it's a real balancing act, huge implications. It's not just about switching technologies, it's a fundamental rethink of how the economy works.
Absolutely, a rethink. And to help us get a handle on all this, we're really pleased to have Dr. James Thornton back with us. He's a top environmental economist, advises the UK Green Business Council. Great to have you.
Thanks. Good to be here. It's definitely a conversation worth having.
So let's kick off with the basics, maybe. This term, green economy, what does it actually mean, practically speaking, for the UK? It feels quite broad.
It is broad, but the core idea is economic activity that's actively trying to reduce environmental damage. Think of it as, well, an economy aiming for better resource efficiency for sustainable development. So that covers renewable energy, obviously wind, solar, maybe hydrogen down the line,
Mm-hmm.
but also things like sustainable transport, green finance that's getting investment into eco-friendly projects, low-carbon construction too,
Mm-hmm.
and importantly, the circular economy idea, moving away from just taking, making, and throwing away.
Okay, the circular economy, you mentioned that. Why is that so key? Is it just like better recycling?
It's much more than just recycling, though that's part of it. It's about fundamentally changing the flow of materials. We extract so much, create so much waste. The circular idea is to keep resources in use for much longer, get the maximum value while they are in use, and then, crucially, recover and regenerate materials at the end. It cuts pollution, cuts waste, sure, but it also sparks new business models. Repair, remanufacturing, clever recycling. It challenges that whole buy new, throw away culture.
Right, designing the waste out from the start. Makes sense. Now, the UK has set some, well, pretty big climate targets. What are the main ones we should know about?
Well, the headline goal, the legally binding one, is net zero carbon emissions by 2050. But to get there, there's a really important interim target, cutting emissions by 68% by 2030. That's compared to 1990 levels. And alongside those numbers, there's a lot of talk about specific green industrial strategies. How do we clean up steelmaking? How do we get EVs adopted faster?
Okay, 68% by 2030. That sounds ambitious. How's the UK actually doing? Are we on track, or are some bits proving trickier?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, honestly. Power generation has been a real success story, offshore wind especially. Investment and clear policy really helped there, big strides. But other really important areas are lagging. Transport emissions are still high. Heating our homes is a massive challenge. Agriculture too. These often need more complex changes in, well, how we all live, plus big infrastructure shifts. It really shows that focused effort, like with offshore wind, can work. But we need that focus elsewhere too.
So challenges definitely exist. But this whole shift must also mean some big economic opportunities for the UK, right? Where are the bright spots?
Oh, absolutely. The potential is huge. First, clean energy tech itself. We talked about offshore wind. The UK has a lead there,
Hmm.
but also potential in things like green hydrogen, better energy storage. Second, jobs. Loads of jobs. We'll need people retrofitting homes to make them warmer, workers in EV factories, building sustainable infrastructure. The government's own estimate is potentially up to 2 million green jobs by 2030.
2 million. Wow.
Yeah, it's a big number.
Yeah.
But it depends on getting the policy right, getting the investment flowing, and really crucially, training people with the right skills. And third, London. It has a real chance to be a global center for green finance, pulling in money for sustainable projects worldwide. Think green bonds, that sort of thing.
Okay, 2 million jobs sounds great. But you mentioned conditions. What really needs to happen to make sure those jobs appear and people are ready for them?
Yeah, they won't just happen automatically. We need consistent government policies, policies that really encourage green industries, give businesses the confidence to invest long term. We need serious money, public and private, for infrastructure. The grid needs upgrading. We need EV chargers everywhere, things like that. And as I said, a massive push on skills, education, training, retraining. People need the right skills for these new roles. It's like a new industrial revolution, really. Needs skilled people driving it.
A new industrial revolution. That definitely highlights the scale. What are the biggest hurdles, the main challenges the UK is facing in actually making this happen smoothly?
There are several quite tricky ones. A big one is retraining the workforce.
Hmm.
Think about people in traditional industries like coal or maybe even oil and gas eventually. As those change, we need clear paths for workers to get skills for the new green jobs, especially in certain regions. Then, infrastructure gaps. Huge ones. Our electricity grid wasn't built for this much renewable power or for everyone charging cars. Needs major upgrades. EV charging points still not enough, especially outside cities. And switching homes from gas boilers to things like heat pumps, that's a massive logistical job. And we have to watch the cost of living impact. If green policies push up energy bills too much or aren't designed fairly, it could hit vulnerable people hardest, which leads to this idea of
And just transition. We hear that phrase a lot. What does it actually mean on the ground for people and communities?
right, a just transition. It basically means making sure this whole shift to a green economy is fair, that we don't leave people or whole communities behind. So it means practical support, help for workers in declining industries to retrain, investment to create new jobs in those areas, and making sure the costs and the benefits of going green are shared fairly, not just falling on those who can least afford it. It's about linking environmental goals with, social fairness.
Let's zoom in on some of those traditional industries. You mentioned steel, but also things like cement, chemicals, big emitters historically. How are they adapting? Is it happening?
They face really tough transformations. Steel, for example. We know how to make green steel using hydrogen instead of coal. Cuts emissions massively. But right now it costs a lot more to produce. So many UK firms are running pilot projects, testing things out, but scaling it up, that needs serious money. Government support, private investment, likely both. It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Investment needed to bring costs down, but firms are often hesitant without clearer signals, subsidies, market guarantees.
So are UK companies really jumping in with both feet, or is it more like dipping a toe in, waiting to see?
I'd say there's a lot of cautious optimism, maybe more caution than bold action across the board. You have some real innovators, definitely.
Yeah.
But the general feeling is many are waiting for clearer, more stable long-term policies and those financial incentives before they commit to the really big, expensive changes. It highlights that tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Businesses need certainty, but policy can sometimes shift or take time.
We touched on the circular economy earlier. How does that fit into the bigger picture of the UK's green goals?
It's absolutely fundamental. It's the shift away from that linear take-make-waste model we've had for so long. Instead, we focus on reusing things, repairing them, recycling materials effectively, keeping them in the loop. The potential is massive for cutting emissions. Think of all the energy used to extract raw materials and make new stuff. And of course, cutting down on landfill waste. Plus, it actually drives innovation, designing products differently so they can be repaired, so they are easier to recycle.
Sounds like a no-brainer, almost. But what stops it from just happening? What are the roadblocks?
Well, the benefits seem clear, but it challenges how many businesses have traditionally worked. Models based on selling more and more new units. It also needs consumers to change habits, getting things repaired instead of replacing them. Supporting businesses that offer reuse options. That needs education, awareness. And we need the right infrastructure, collection systems, sorting facilities, places that can actually do the remanufacturing or high-quality recycling, plus the right economic signals making the circular option the easier or cheaper one sometimes.
You've actually spoken to people working in some of these new green jobs. Can you share a bit about that? What do those personal stories tell us?
Yeah, definitely. It really brings it to life. I remember talking to a young apprentice in Leeds, learning to install solar panels. He was just so enthusiastic, talked about feeling like he was doing something worthwhile, something with purpose, building a better future. Real pride there. Then, a totally different story. I met a guy in South Wales, worked for decades at a coal-fired power station, now retraining to maintain offshore wind turbines. For him, it was a huge change, a real personal transformation, but also, tough. Learning completely new skills, adjusting to a different world of work. It just underlines that this isn't just about targets and graphs. It's about real people, their jobs, their lives, their communities.
Those stories really do put a human face on it, don't they? Real people navigating big changes. Okay, so pulling all these threads together, what's the government's most critical role here? What do they absolutely need to get right?
The government's role is, well, it's crucial and it's varied. First, they need to set the rules of the game. Clear, long-term regulations. That includes things like effective carbon pricing, making pollution costly and clear targets for different sectors, gives businesses direction. Second, direct public investment. Serious money is needed for big infrastructure like upgrading the grid, supporting R&D for new clean tech, helping build that EV charging network. And third, skills. investing heavily in training, retraining, upskilling programs, making sure we have the workforce ready for these green jobs.
And is the UK's current approach, the policy environment, providing that sort of long-term clarity and steadiness that's needed?
That's, that's a point of concern for many. While the big targets are there have been worries about policy inconsistency. Support schemes changing, targets shifting slightly. That kind of thing makes it harder for businesses to make those big long-term investment decisions. They need stability, predictability. What's really key here, I think, is making sure climate action is seen as a long-term, cross-party commitment, not something that chops and changes too much with political cycles. That stability is vital.
How does the UK stack up internationally in this green economy race? Are we leading the pack or are others pulling ahead?
It's interesting. Historically, the UK was a real pioneer in some areas. Offshore wind, definitely. And in climate diplomacy, setting those initial ambitious targets. But now, well, the pace is picking up massively elsewhere. China is investing huge amounts, the EU has its Green Deal, and the US, especially with the Inflation Reduction Act, is putting serious federal money behind clean energy and manufacturing. So it highlights that this is becoming a really competitive global field. It's not just about cutting emissions anymore. It's about who leads on the technology, who gets the export markets, who builds the most resilient economy for the future. It's heating up.
What about people here in the UK? What's the general feeling? Is the public behind this green shift?
Generally, yes. If you look at polls, there's usually strong support for the net zero goal overall. And for things like more renewable energy, people get the basic idea. But it gets more complicated when it translates to potential personal costs. If people think it means much higher energy bills or new levies or big changes they feel forced into, then support can definitely wobble.
That really brings home how important communication is, doesn't it? How this whole thing is framed.
Absolutely crucial. Talking about the opportunities, the jobs, the cleaner air, the warmer homes, the innovation is vital. If it's only framed as a sacrifice, as something that's going to cost everyone, it's much harder to keep that public support and momentum going. It needs to be seen as a positive transition as much as possible.
Okay, let's look ahead then. Fast forward 10, maybe 15 years. If the UK really gets this right, what does success look like? What's the optimistic vision?
Well, in that successful future, you'd see a much more resilient energy system, largely decarbonized, powered mostly by renewables, backed up by storage and maybe hydrogen. You'd have millions of people in well-paid, secure green jobs across the country. In manufacturing, installation, maintenance, green finance, you name it. We'd feel the benefits directly. Cleaner air in our cities, warmer, cheaper to heat homes, stronger local economies, less reliant on volatile global fossil fuel prices, and hopefully the UK would be seen again as a real global leader, developing and exporting climate solutions, sharing expertise. That's the prize, I think.
That does paint an encouraging picture. Any final thought for our listeners as they think about all this, about the UK's green future?
Just that this isn't some far-off thing. The green transition is happening now. It's already affecting us. And its direction, how fast it goes, how fair it is, that's shaped by choices we all make. As individuals, as communities, through our businesses, through policy. Everyone really does have a role in shaping it, making sure it's done well.
Dr. James Thornton, thank you. That was incredibly insightful. Really appreciate you taking the time to break it all down for us.
My pleasure. It was a really good discussion.
And to all of you listening, we really hope this deep dive has given you a clearer picture of the UK's green economy journey. It's more than just environmental policy, isn't it? It's a huge economic shift. Full of potential, yes, but also some really knotty challenges. The big question, as was just highlighted, is whether the UK can really seize this moment effectively. Thanks for tuning in to the deep dive. If this sparks some ideas, please do subscribe, perhaps leave a review, or share it with someone else who might find it interesting. And thank you for watching Westferry Times. Stay informed, stay hopeful, and, well, stay green.